Okay, let's continue on here, and what I want to do is add in an animated light to have an effect in to enhance the effect. What I'm going to do is double click on my glass material real quick and add in a reflection here. And I want the reflection to be not too bright, but just enough, because we want the light to bounce off of the reflection of the object. I'm going to switch back into my editor camera. Okay, you see now that the editor camera is totally independent of the follow camera, so I can go back and zoom in into my viewport. And what I'm going to do is quickly go in and add in a light. Now you notice a couple types of lights here to actually talk about. Let's go in and talk about them. We have our basic light, we have our spotlight. Okay, this is pretty much an omni light, this basic light, and it goes all the way across. The spotlight focus on a given area. So let me just make one and show it to you. This is the basic light here. That's what it looks like. Okay. Going into the spotlight, you see the spotlight has a cone and it focuses onto a certain point. So when I render this out, you see the light is going to focus in onto a certain point, whereas with the basic light, it's going to just stay in to a given area. And there it is right there. So that may be interesting to actually see, because we're going to highlight this a little bit more and add some effect to it. So I want to maybe keep that spotlight there. Infinite light just goes in to all lighting sources possible. Okay, let me show you infinite light. You see this is one point, so it's going to point to an infinite direction for infinity. Okay. Going into area light, the area light is lighting up a certain area. Okay, like if you want to light in a certain side of a wall, something like that, you can use the area light. And you have a target light with a target icon on it, so the light's going to point at a certain target, just like the spotlight, but the only thing is going to point at a certain target. Again, I like to create my own targets here, because then we can follow things a little bit more, but you can actually animate this over. You know, there's the target, and then the light itself is up way into the distance. So I'm going to delete that. Now, it's like the regular light that we have here, because I'm going to add some types of effects to it. I'm going to bring it out. Okay. And you notice we're going to go into our attributes window here and talk about a couple of things. We have our light color here, and I want to change this to some type of a blue. Okay, just to enhance it a little bit, so when I render this out, looks like some type of blue information on the back, of the light itself. Okay, and you can see different types of light. It's a spotlight. You can go in and change it from omni. You can change the light whatever you create it to what you want. So you don't have to use these lights in the drop down, but you can also take a regular light and just create it to whatever you want. Now I want visible light here, which is very important. There's three different types here. You have visible light. Okay, there's the light that's visible. So now we see light through a cone that goes across. And that's pretty much the effect that I want. But then also we have volumetric light. And this gives you the real fall off of light going through objects here. And then we have inverse volumetric. And again, this lights up the whole 3D area, so you don't really see the fall off. You just see where the area is actually being lit. So let's just stick to visible. That's all we need. And you notice that now we have visible light. I can scale this up. So I can hit these cones and scale it up to a certain point. Move this up here and really light this whole piece of glass all together. Okay. You have show no illumination, show illumination, because if you take off illumination you won't see it. If you take off the visible light you won't see it. Okay, you have different types here. Going into the details, this is going into the fall off and the aspect ratio. If you want to change the constant of the light to really white out a scene. Again, in future tutorial series we'll talk about this in more in detail. We're lighting detail scenes and things of that sort. The visibility shows how far the angle is actually going to go. Okay, so if I grab this, you notice that the outer distance is going to change. Okay, and then the inner distance is at 0 here. Okay, and that's at the cone at the top here. So we want to keep that at 0 because we want that's where the light to start out at. Okay, you have different types of brightness. You have dust effect onto it. If I add in dust and then I render it out. Okay, you really can't see it, but there's some little dust particles in onto the screen to actually enhance it a little bit. I'm going to show you something else a little bit better to use in the dust, and that will come in next with the types of information here. We have no shadows. We're going to add in some soft shadows. Hard shadows are more non-realistic, and soft shadows are more realistic shadows. Just be aware that soft shadows add in some detail with the rendering time. Okay, so now we have a shadow here, and you won't really see it until we bring the ball in. So if I bring the ball in to this point, okay, and then I render it out, you see we have a shadow onto the ball and to the glass itself, and then you have the reflection into it. Okay, so let's keep the shadows on to soft. Let's go in now to caustics, because we have a reflective object here, so I want the caustics to be on for surface. Okay, this just controls the number of photons that will bounce out or repel light from a reflective or a volumetric object. Okay, and you have volume caustics. This is used for any type of underwater effect. If you're looking at fish underwater and looking up towards the sky, you can use a volume caustics. The fall off rate just controls how much of the photons will actually be shown during the rendering. And again, as in further tutorials, we'll go into a lot more detail. For noise, we have noise type, which is going to give us some type of smoke effect here. So it's on to none right now, but I want to go into illumination and go into visible, or say both. Okay, illumination means that it'll go in to where the light source is coming from. Okay, if I go to visibility, you won't really see it. It's just visible onto the object itself. But I want to use both here to add in, both to add in the right type of effect. So when we render this out, you see now that we have this smoky kind of effect here onto the object. So it doesn't really look like a static light. It's like some type of smoke or something that's breaking into the window. Okay, and then we have different types of noise to have there. Okay, we can show the visible noise, and then we have soft turbulence. We have noise, which is bigger. Okay, and render that out. Bigger chunks. We have a hard turbulence, which is more kind of gradient and more harsh and dense. And then we have a wavy one, which is more oily type of effect. So I'm going to use the soft right now. Okay, and there's the velocity, the brightness, and the contrast. We're going to keep all of that the same, and the wind we're going to keep the same, because it's going to go into the direction it's going to go. So again, you can animate these over time. So I can right mouse click, say animation, add keyframe, and change the wind so it looks like it's actually smoke blowing in front of a light. The best example of this is that if you're looking in front of your headlights of your car at nighttime, or it's really cold, you know, you can see kind of smoke coming off the headlights. This is the exact same effect as adding light noise to a light. Okay. Finally, we have a lens effect here, and then you can add these lens effects, and these are exactly the same way they are in Photoshop. You know, I just want to add in maybe a star or something. Let's add in blue. Okay, and then we add in a reflex to match that. Okay, that's the reflex in. So if I render this out, you really should only see this at this point here, not what it's pointing out to. So really it'd be ineffective to see this. So we had another light here to show the reflex of it, then it'll actually work. But right now, since the light is a spotlight, it won't really work in. But just want to show you that dialog box there so you can see what it actually does. Okay. And then anything you want to exclude in the scene. Do I want to exclude anything? Well, if I exclude the sphere itself, it really wouldn't work out, you know, because you'd exclude the color of it and all that. So just say no. You know, but you can't exclude objects. You don't want the object to be lit up if you want some type of ghost object or something like that. So now we're set here. Okay, and what we're going to do is switch back into my follow camera. Okay, and we're going to animate this. And we'll keep the light static. So we're going to take and render from this shot. Okay, and this is what it looks like when the glass is actually breaking. You see all the detailed effects into it as the little granules of glass. It's shattering in, and we see a ball into the background. Okay, and then if you add this into something with like motion blur and stuff like that, you get this really nice effect of glass actually shattering onto the ground. And what the only thing we just did was just use a simple deformer to actually do this. Okay, and then if I go to this point here, alright, you pretty much just see these little bits and pieces and the light is pointing down to the ground here. Okay, so this just covers into adding in a light just to polish off the scene. If you've been following along, I guess now it's time to actually buckle down and render this out to see what actually happens. And then, you know, again, go back in, play with the lights, change the color around, see what actually happens. Have fun with this and explore. The whole goal of these tutorials is to give you ideas how to use them into the real world So again, follow the steps along with the tutorial, but then after the tutorial is over, try to experiment with things on your own and see what actually happens.